we hurry? Because I really want to see the rest of the galaxy.
Listen, you don't know what it's like. You're safe here and things are peaceful, but the galaxy is
Terrifying and full of danger.
Right. So you do know.
Because I've heard it a million times.
I've not said it that much.
It's only dangerous because the Jedi are needed.
Oh, welcome back. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 98th Astro Boy analoguing episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. The best way to reach out to us is, of course, via social media. We are at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Please, by all means, email the show, long-form emails, at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. And hey, if you want to support the show in fun and unique ways, 5-star reviews are so super sweet. They help the small independent shows like us stand out, not get lost in the chaotic seas of the podcasting landscape where everyone and their brother has a podcast. And in my case, that's literally true because I have another podcast that my brother is a co-host on very often. So it's true. I speak with truth in my heart and in my voice. Well, welcome back. Greetings to any new listeners that are on board. We're so glad you're here. We have a fun podcast lined up for you today. We're still exploring the world of Star Wars Visions. And we're two sort of like, in my mind, what is sort of a interesting chunk of episodes in Star Wars Visions. I'm not sure if I like these back 4 as much as I like the front 5. But that's not to say there isn't something unique and interesting going on with each of these episodes as we will explore every single one individually because, hey, these creators put in the time and the effort to make these stories for us. The least we can do is show them the same amount of respect by talking about each episode individually and trying our best to I don't know what word I want to use here, but we just want to show that respect back to these creators and talk about the shows in the best possible sense that we can. And, you know, whether there's positives or negatives, that's all subjective. That's on me. That's on you as a listener and a viewer of the content. But we're going to try and be fair, and we're going to try and be nice. That's sort of the key element on the Mandovision podcast. You know, even the Star Wars content that we're not the world's biggest fans of, people worked really hard on these things, and they deserve credit and respect for that. You know, if someone walked into your job that, you know, let's just assume you're pretty happy with your job and you like it there, and someone came in there and just crapped all over it, you'd be pretty upset too. We have no intention of doing that. That's not what Mandovision is here for. You know, again, there may be things we don't like, and we will be honest and express that, but we're not going to be mean about it. Never going to be mean. The Mandos aren't mean. Well, maybe they're a little mean. But again, this podcast is a safe place. We're here to have conversations. We're here to have dialogues. There's no name calling. There's no just throwing out blanket statements. You know, we try to support our arguments, my arguments in particular on the show. I try to support them as much as I can. You either agree, you disagree, and that's cool. We're all here to have fun and enjoy Star Wars on our own way. Maybe there's an episode of Visions you like more than me. Maybe there's an episode of Visions that I like less than you. It's all good because we're here for the conversation. And that's exactly what we're here for, because it is one of the more divisive episodes of Star Wars Visions this week. This is episode 6. Now, there's multiple ways to interpret this title. TO-B1, 2B1, or ultimately Toby. So that to me, that's kind of a fun element of the title alone, in that there's sort of 3 ways to take it as the story sort of progresses and as you sort of look at what it's all about. So this is Star Wars Visions episode 6. We'll just call it TO-B1 for right now. This is presented by Science Saru, the studio. It is the second lowest ranked episode of Star Wars Visions according to IMDb ratings right now. It is still ahead of Tatooine Rhapsody, but it's close. And the next episode above it is also close to this one. So there could be a flip-flop. This could be the third lowest rated at some point, too. This one has gotten a lot of negative criticisms. Again, a lot of the stuff that we talked about in earlier episodes reviewing Visions. You get a lot of the same stuff. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't right. The only thing they have that's from Star Wars is a lightsaber. And just to reiterate, if anyone new is out there listening to this episode and you haven't heard what I've said in the past, Star Wars is so many things to so many people. It is not limited to one specific thing. And if you think that it is, this maybe isn't the podcast for you. And that's unfortunate. But we accept multiple perspectives, multiple interpretations of what Star Wars is and can be, and we welcome them, because the more things that Star Wars can be is the happier I can be. And that is really why I'm doing this podcast, because I love Star Wars so much. It makes me so happy. And so the more Star Wars I can get, the more diverse Star Wars can be, the better. And it just makes the world a more harmonious place. So let's get into this episode. Like I said, this one's controversial. This will probably be one of the lower rated episodes that I review from Visions because no one likes it. Okay, some people like it more than Tatooine Rhapsody, but still, not a highly rated episode. But I think there are things in this episode that you can look at and extrapolate from and have a good time with. It's a solid piece of entertainment. It's 14 minutes out of your life, and I've seen way worse ways to spend 14 minutes of your life. And I could probably name a couple, but that's a different podcast. We're not doing that on this show. We're keeping it on the positive, and we're going to look at this episode, I think, even-handedly. I'm not going to delve in it. It's not Star Wars. It's nonsense. It says Star Wars on it. It must be Star Wars. And I'm also not going to be the guy who poops all over Disney and their direction and their handling of Star Wars. Those are different podcasts. You know where to find those. We can have that conversation at a later date. But again, it'll be a polite conversation. It'll be a civil conversation. But for another time. So let's get into it. Let's get excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to talk about this episode because there's interesting things in this. There's some really fun little nuggets here and there in this episode. Now, again, it's not my favorite one by far. It's more towards the middle, maybe even more towards the back half of my overall rankings of the 9 episodes. But there's interesting concepts in here. There's some fun ideas to explore, and we're going to get into all of those. But you know what you have to do first? It is the key element of the Mandovision podcast. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Huh? What am I drawing? Well, obviously it's a Jedi Knight! Ah! Is the strong, heroic Jedi Knight, TO-B1!
Star Wars Visions number 6, TO-B1, from Science Saru Studios. The plot is a cybernetic boy who dreams of being a Jedi discovers a dangerous truth about his creator. Directed by Abel Gongoria, written by Yuichiro Kido. This episode of Star Wars Visions has possibly the smallest voice cast of them all. So our cast for this episode, Jaden Waldman as TO-B1, Kyle Chandler as Mitaka, Neil Kaplan as the Inquisitor, and Michael Sinterniklas as Stormtrooper. And I think Michael has like one line, and I hope it's pronounced Michael. Has like one line of dialogue. But he and Neil Kaplan have been in previous episodes of Visions thus far as some of the English speaking voices. So kind of interesting to see them come back, do some more stuff. And that's kind of where we are with that aspect of it. So let's go ahead and talk about the show. I think the thing that I noticed first about this episode, first and foremost, is that it's essentially Astro Boy in Star Wars. Now, Astro Boy is not a character that I have a super intimate familiarity with. I know the character visually. I've seen Astro Boy in various forms of media over my time on this planet, but I don't know much about Astro Boy's creation other than he's some sort of cybernetic boy being. And that's what TO-B1 is, a cybernetic boy being who dreams of being a Jedi Knight. And that is the fuel for this episode. Now, much like other episodes of the show, it does fixate a bit on lightsabers and kyber crystals. But again, that just is sort of like the through line in Star Wars Visions for all these episodes. It's like lightsabers, kyber crystals, kind of that reoccurring element that we've talked about in prior episodes. Obviously, the big knock on the episode is that it's very kid-centric. It's very youth-friendly. It's not for us middle-aged fans of Star Wars. And you can enjoy this episode just fine if you know that going into it. Or if you're like me and you watch it for the first time, it quickly dawns on you that, hey, this isn't necessarily aimed at me. But you can still sit there, watch it, enjoy it, and take, kind of like bask in the joyful, youthful energy of the episode. Again, I don't know a darn thing about Astro Boy, and if Astro Boy's, as youthful and excitable as TO-B1, I can see why that character has endured for so long. Because I think TO-B1 has that youthful, joyful energy that Star Wars needs on occasion, and I'm okay with it being geared toward a slightly younger audience. Star Wars is supposed to be for everyone. That includes people younger than me, including people that are significantly younger than me, like, children who go to Star Wars Land and want to get lightsabers and have fights with stormtroopers or whatever, doing that whole thing, doing that Padawan school they do at Disneyland. I don't want to go on a tangent. I'm just very tired of Star Wars fans in my age bracket doing that whole thing where it's like Star Wars is this. I'm just tired of it. I'm just so worn out by it. Watch this. Enjoy its youthful energy. Now, this is not my favorite episode by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even my favorite animated episode. I feel like the animation on this one is, again, there's a nice dynamic energy to it, but it's got a weird sort of graininess to it that I never quite caught on to. And there's also sort of a sort of whitewashed, bland kind of color palette that, again, I wish they had done some more with the colors, made it pop a little bit. Because when I almost called him Master Boy, but when TO-B1 first opens his eyes from sort of like his sleep state, and we meet Mitaka for the first time, the colors kind of pop, and you sort of think that might be what you get the rest of this episode, but the white tones of the episode sort of wash everything out as far as that goes. And that's part of the planet that they're on, this dual sun planet, the twin sun planet. Again, another evocative image from Star Wars, the twin suns. And yeah, I mean, as far as the color palette goes, I guess that's all I really have to say about it. The animation's still solid. It's just not my favorite animation that we've seen thus far. But it still stands out more than some of the episodes that we'll get to a little bit later on. And we'll talk about those in a couple days. So solid enough entertainment. The presentation, the story is simple enough. TO-B1 is a cybernetic boy who dreams of being a Jedi Knight. And who wouldn't? Again, this is if this show is in fact geared towards a younger audience, who in that younger audience does not dream of being a Jedi Knight, wielding a lightsaber, going into battle against Inquisitors and Dark Jedi and Sith Lords and Stormtroopers and the whole shebang? Like, this is totally in line with what Star Wars is. So that argument on so many of the negative reviews of this isn't Star Wars is a very narrow perspective. And I don't have the time or the patience for it any longer. So we're moving on. The other knock you could make is that, well, a cybernetic being cannot possibly be in attunement with the Force. The Force is all about the living galaxy, the living universe. Now, again, he's a cybernetic boy. Is he all cyborg? Is he all robot? Is he all droid? Potentially, possibly. Or is there a chunk of TO-B1 that is the TO-B that is named later on by Mitaki, that his former Padawan perhaps imbued with these cybernetic parts in a new way of living? There's a lot of elements to this story that we don't get into. And the exploration of a cybernetic being as a potential Jedi, I think is very interesting, very fascinating. I mean, Darth Vader is a cyborg, still able to wield the Force and do some serious damage to many people, choking out Imperial officers left and right, and throwing half of the Cloud City at Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back. So don't discount TO-B1 because he's a cybernetic being. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. If they come around and be like, oh yeah, no, he's a full on droid, I guess I could understand your argument a little bit more. But then you have to indulge in your imagination, your sense of imagination, your sense of wonder about the Star Wars galaxy, and like the idea of like, well, what if a droid were attuned to the Force? Because then that makes you examine your relationship with the droids of Star Wars. And we'll just focus real quickly on R2-D2 and C-3PO, the classic characters, the droids that we are most attuned with as a viewing audience, and that we are most closely connected to. If you watch those droids get destroyed on screen, would you not weep for them? You've known them your entire life. They were your entry point into Star Wars when you first watched A New Hope. If they were killed on screen, or in a comic, or in a novel, would you not be upset? Would you not have an emotional, visceral reaction? Even though they're quote-unquote just droids and quote-unquote not a life form, blah, 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 that can't live with the Force? No, you wouldn't. You would be very upset at the death of R2-D2 and C-3PO. You wouldn't just be like, dumb droids, we'll get some new ones. That's not how it works. And if that is how it works for you, you might got something else going on. And we'll talk to you later after the podcast. But yeah, so let's indulge our sense of wonder, our sense of fancy, if you will, and embrace the idea that a droid or cybernetic being could wield the Force, could wield a lightsaber, and be a Jedi Knight. Why not? Why not? Is Star Wars not rife with potential possibilities and exploring all of these things? Again, for a film franchise that spans, it spans 9 movies, but there's not a huge mythology as far as well, there is. I take it back. I was going to go down the road, but I'm not going to do it. But why not embrace so many different aspects, so many different concepts and ideas? Maybe ultimately it proves futile, but indulge it. Like, go with it. See where it goes. See what happens. And if it makes the Star Wars universe richer, then there's nothing wrong with that. And as far as the story goes for the episode, it's pretty like by the numbers in a sense that TO-B1, Toby, to be one, to be a Jedi Knight, it wants to have a quest, and Mitaka gives him a quest. Let's go find a kyber crystal. There's one on this planet somewhere, and I sort of enjoy the sequence where he is looking for the kyber crystal, where he's trying to find the Force in the most childlike way possible by looking behind rocks for it. Like it's some sort of thing to actually seek out and find with your eyes, as opposed to what the Force is, this living entity that is all around us at all times. There's something charming about that. There's something fun about that. And if you can't get behind that, maybe you're just taking your Star Wars too seriously. And and that's your business. I don't want to knock that. If you want to take Star Wars super seriously, that's cool. That's your thing. But you and I are gonna have a hard time meeting in the middle, because like I'm more willing to have some flexibility in my Star Wars. And again, don't get me wrong. There's parts of Star Wars that I'm like, that was not for me. And this episode, by and large, isn't for me, quote unquote. But there's enough in there that I indulge the fantasy of it. And I think that's the biggest leap that a lot of us older Star Wars fans have to take for this particular episode. TO-B1 on his quest eventually comes across a T-16 Skyhopper. Obviously, we all recognize that ship as what Luke had on Tatooine. That would be what he hunted down his Womp Rats with. They're not much bigger than 2 meters. You know the lines. I don't have to repeat them to you. You were all on the same page. But really cool. What a neat little throwback to something. There's so many callbacks in these episodes. Whether it's lines of dialogue that we know intimately from all the films, or like evocative imagery of the Star Destroyers, of TIE fighters, X-wing fighters, things like that. The T-16 was the one that kind of surprised me. It's like, they went back to this point. That's very, very interesting. And then going back to the very beginning of this episode, when TO-B1 is looking for the other droid, and he goes up to that room, and I couldn't quite tell if that droid is the one doing the wall etchings, but I mean, you get the entire Star Wars saga as like a wall etching. And I thought it was really a really fun little thing that they did there. Like, you can recognize various things. You see A-Wings and X-Wings and TIE Fighters and what looks to be the Death Star and what looks to be General Grievous fighting off against a Jedi Knight. And these wonderful little elements in the episode that I found very endearing. And I like that so very, very much. Some of the stuff I read online was like, oh no, this is firmly entrenched between episodes 3 and 4. But if you look at those wall etchings, you're like, well, there were no A-Wings. There was no, TIE fighters right at the end of the episode. And I guess technically there could be, because you're seeing AT-ATs and AT-STs on those wall etchings too, and maybe at some point they transition to that. But let's just play along with the idea, like, this is just fantasy. And we're embracing the entire Star Wars mythos. Because it's not like that's an Inquisitor that we've seen in the past. We know all the Inquisitors. That's not one we know. But embrace the fantasy, embrace the whimsy, embrace the fancy of it all. And then if you do that, if you can sort of just enjoy it for what it is, I think you'll like this episode a lot more than the reviews give it credit for. Obviously, again, we talked about it. It's knocked for quote unquote not being Star Wars, and it's very much Star Wars. It's very much in line with Star Wars, but because some people with a narrower perspective of what Star Wars is want to put it in this little tiny box, they're not getting the enjoyment out of it that we are. And I think there's a lot to take out of this episode. It's really solid entertainment, really dynamic entertainment. There's sadness in this episode. There's an emotional spectrum. Again, I almost called him Astro Boy, but TO-B1 in his sort of young, energetic state, when he finds a T-16 Skyhopper, gets on board, starts pushing buttons like any other kid would do, and starts doing make-believe like we would do. We already know at this point that TO-B1 makes believes that he's a Jedi Knight all the time. It's what he wants most in this galaxy. He wants to leave this planet and go out and do Jedi Knight things. But it's Mitaki who has to sort of be like, hey, listen, we have work to do. And it's good work. We're doing a good thing here by bringing life to this planet. And then it's through Mitaka's death that TO-B1 learns that what they're doing and the value of what they're doing. And again, it's a 14-minute episode, and it's like hyper compressed. But TO-B1 learns these intense lessons. Like, there was a point for being here. Bringing life to this planet was a worthwhile quest. And now that, just because I'm a Jedi doesn't mean that quest is over. I can now go out about into the galaxy and continue what my master, what my creator, Mitaka, taught me to do. And again, if you're bringing life to the galaxy, you're bringing life to the Force. You're making the Force stronger. You're making the Force more present in people's lives by bringing life to dead worlds and things like that. So this episode is perhaps in some ways more Star Warsy than many others because of its understanding of life and the Force. Food for thought. Just my 2 cents. But I really dug it. And then obviously the scene where TO-B1 realizes that the Kyber crystal is in fact in him, and he builds his lightsaber, and he goes to avenge the death of Mitaka by engaging with the Inquisitor, having a great lightsaber battle. The lightsaber battles are really, really fun between TO-B1, at this point in the episode, he's Toby, and the Inquisitor. And then when he powers up with the CO3 droid and gets like that ultra armor suit after his arm gets cut off by the Inquisitor, just really fun. That's when the animation kicks off. Animation. That's when the anime style really kicks off, and you see that dynamic, kinetic energy that I look forward to in every single episode. Really engages, really comes to life. And I don't have a lot more to say about the episode than that. I think it's harshly criticized. I think it's rife with potential. I enjoy the idea of a cybernetic being able to wield a lightsaber and the Force, and have a connection to the spirituality of the Force, the energy of life in the galaxy. And now he sounds wrong. I don't want to say it, so I'll just say they. Now they want to go out into the galaxy and spread that from world to world. Perhaps more Star Warsy than some of the other episodes we've seen thus far. And there's some really damn good episodes in there. But it's subtle, it's subtext, and I think a lot of the reviews that I've read on on each of these episodes, it's all surface stuff. You're just looking at what you're seeing. You're not embracing these people are not embracing the material, the script, the story that's being told. And again, a very hyper condensed story at the same time. I like this episode a lot. I think it's really, really underrated. People seem to knock it for being an Astro Boy knock. People seem to knock it for being like, there's no way this robot boy can wield the Force. And it's your prerogative, but I feel like that is generally the state of mind of an unhappy person. An unhappy person. And Star Wars makes me happy, and I think Star Wars makes the vast majority of listeners to this podcast happy. So by and large, watch the TO-B1 episode with that perspective and be happy. There's something joyful about this episode that I think it gets overlooked because of sort of like the negative cloud around it that it's not Star Wars enough. If it wasn't for the lightsabers, it wouldn't be a Star Wars story. I got no time for that. And the fine listeners of this podcast, I believe you all don't have time for that either. I got no time for negative energy as far as that goes. Again, there's things about Star Wars that we don't have to like and love. But saying something Star Wars enough, if you're gonna say that, you got to give me some better arguments than it's not Star Warsy enough. Period. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, and I don't have time for it. If you can't support your art, it's like high school when you would write a paper and you would get the note back from your teacher in red ink, like support your theme. That's what these reviews can't seem to do. So, if anyone would care to elaborate on why it's not Star Warsy enough for them, I'm happy to listen. We can have a dialogue. We can have a discussion, and maybe one of us gets swayed the other way, but maybe at the very least we understand where each other's coming from. Hopefully. I don't want to be divisive. That's not what we do here on Mandovision. But I don't have anything else to say about it. Listen. As far as rating goes, I guess a 6.5, maybe even a 7 is where I would fall. I freely acknowledge this episode is not for me. But there's fun little nuggets, and there's this wonderful youthful energy about the episode that I can't knock. Just because I'm not young doesn't mean I have to make fun of something or insult something that is for the young. There are elements to this that I really enjoy. And this is an episode you can show a young person, and maybe they get really excited about Star Wars for the first time. That's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. Because guess what? Old farts like me are going to be dead at one day. So if it's not for the upcoming generations embracing Star Wars now, Star Wars will die. And that's not what I want to have happen. Star Wars is not for me in my generation. Star Wars is for everyone, for all generations forward. And that's what the bottom line is supposed to be. Create stories, craft stories that keep bringing in new fans, creating new fans. That's what we want. That's the legacy of Star Wars needs to be. People want to knock it for being owned by Disney, but Disney's been around half our lives now. Well, for our parents has been half their lives. But again, for my entire existence, Disney has been around, and Disney will be around long after I'm gone. But I'll always have my memories of Disney, and they're good memories. What's wrong with that? I don't know. If you want to attack me, you know where to attack me. Reach out. It's at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Long form emails can go to mandovisiontom@gmail.com. I will be happy to read them. Happy to engage in a discussion. And again, we don't have to agree, but we do have to be polite and civil to one another, treat each other like human beings. That's my most important aspect of the long-form engagement. Yeah, and that's it. I don't know what else to say. like I said, 6.5, maybe a 7 if I'm feeling super generous, but a really enjoyable episode of the show. And that's saying something because, again, I don't know how I feel about the back 4 of this season in relation to the first 5 of the season. So we're going to work that out. We're going to have a little therapy session for me as we watch the next couple of episodes. We got 3 more left to go in Visions, and we're going to talk about our feelings. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to be emotional. I'm going to put it out there on Front Street, and hopefully you all help me get some clarity on how I should feel about some of these episodes that we're getting ready to watch. I wanted to give a little bit of a programming note for all you fine listeners who tune in every single episode that we download. You download it quickly, you listen to it quickly, you comment quickly, and I we've been doing the Monday Friday thing for a long time, and the plan is still to maintain that. There has been a little bit of turmoil in my home life. Nothing crazy, nothing horrifying. So don't be too concerned about me as far as that goes. Like, I'm not going to be in some crazy mental state. I'm not volatile or emotionally unstable at the moment. There's just some stuff happening, and it may cause an occasional delay in an episode by a day or so. If that happens, I will be posting it on social media ahead of time that, hey, listen, I'm super sorry. The episode's going to be late by about 24 hours. So like a Monday show might shift to Tuesday, or a Friday show might shift to a Saturday, something along those lines. I'm going to try to keep it on point Monday, Friday, as much as I can. But I want to give everyone a heads up. There's some stuff going on in my personal life, in the real world, and I'm handling it. I'm trying to keep it as separate from the podcast as humanly possible. And again, nothing bad. Please, if you have any concern about me as a person, don't worry. It's nothing super dramatic. There's just a little bit of I'll put it a little bit out there. It's a little bit of a housing situation. So, you know how it is with housing situations. Things happen, and you get a little busy. So that may be what's going on. I'll talk more about it as things kind of shake out, as more information is made available to me. Like, I'm still waiting for details on things, but I did want to give everyone a heads up because this audience is so loyal and so awesome, and I'm so happy that everyone takes the time to download and share and engage with me on socials. And I can't thank you enough. And the least I could do is show you the respect that you've shown me by being upfront and honest. Like, I'm doing my best to keep it Monday and Friday. But if there's a delay, please be on social media. You'll see the post. I'll put it out there, let you all know ahead of time that, hey, I'm super sorry, but I need another 24 hours to get this out. And that's all I got for you today. But yeah, we should be chugging along. We're gonna finish Visions, and I'm excited to get to, again, these final 3 episodes of Visions. Conflicted feelings, hot topics, many thoughts, and we will get to it very soon. I'm excited. We're rolling into these final 3 episodes, and then we're going to be blazing a trail, getting ready to get to the Book of Boba Fett. Come on. This year is going to end with such a bang with that show debuting. Cannot wait for it. In the meantime, I do want to really quickly plug the other podcast that I do. If you're not a listener, please head on over, check out the Tomcast Popcast. We are in the midst of our Halloween-based episodes of the show, so we're talking about this year we're doing fun Halloween movies. We talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we talked about Happy Death Day, and we're getting ready to do an episode with Tucker and Dale versus Evil versus The Cabin in the Woods. So kind of like the lighter fare. If you're not into like the gore and the slasher films and the jump scares, these are the Halloween podcasts that you need right now. So please head over to the Tomcast Popcast, check out what we're doing over there, and yeah, give it a like. There is more naughty language on those episodes. I do tend to be a bit more. I work blue on those ones. More F-bombs, things of that nature. Star Wars is a more family-friendly podcast. Mandovision is a more family-friendly podcast. Tomcast Popcast is a little bit more colorful in the language spectrum. So check those out if you're looking for some Halloween-based content. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to do that. Again, I gave you the social medias. I gave you all the other stuff. So I think we're all set. I think we're ready to wrap up. We'll be back very soon, hopefully on time. Hopefully no delays. But you know how this podcast works. Because it can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.